Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested, and well, today's the day. It's the release of the Meta Quest Pro, and here it is. Yes, Meta sent me a unit to review, and I've been using it for the past 3.5 days, which, let's be honest, that's not a lot of time to test thoroughly this headset or try to fully integrate it into a long-term workflow. But I have had a chance to play a bunch of games, do a bunch of battery tests, and get a better sense of what the experience is like with the Quest Pro than I did with my brief hands-on time earlier this month. So consider this part one of a longer term review where I'll be answering some of the questions that I had and hopefully you had after seeing this device announced. And if you want to know the speeds and feeds and nuts and bolts and a more thorough look at all the specs that were announced, you can watch my hands-on preview video linked in the description below. But we will cover topics like ergonomics, display, battery life, performance, what the pass-through is like, the new sensors like face tracking and eye tracking, and have some preliminary thoughts of the applications I've been able to use that really, as Meta makes it clear, is targeted toward professionals and creatives and the enterprise market. And that's why this is priced at $1,500, more than 3.5 times the price of the Quest 2 right now. So let's start off by talking about ergonomics. When I first tried this on during my hands-on time, I noticed, yes, it was noticeably just more comfortable to wear. Now, the headset is heavier than the Quest 2 at 722 grams. That's because it has that fixed side strap, has a battery built into the back now. And because of the new design, because of the new ergonomics, the weight of the headset is really balanced between where it compresses to the back of your head and where it sits on your forehead, this pad right here. No longer do you have the pressure on the front of your face. You're not going to get the kind of goggle, the VR goggles look, or pinching your nose that I had experienced previously on the previous Oculus and Meta headsets like the Quest 2 and Quest 1. So in gameplay sessions, in doing my testing, wearing this for over an hour at a time, I have to say I did feel the weight of the headset eventually. It wasn't so much uncomfortable as I started to notice that there was the weight being kind of sitting right on the top of my forehead, but it wasn't so much that I wanted to take this off or I felt like it was straining me. It's noticeable, but you can actually still work through it, play games through it, and I was able to go through long demo sessions at over 2 hours wearing the headset the entire time. And when I took the headset off, my face didn't feel sweaty, which is just a nice benefit of this design. One of the best parts of this design, though, is that now fully accommodates large glasses like the ones I wear right in the headset itself. And that's because, again, it doesn't push up against your face, and there's this nice facial relief that you can adjust with the dial in the front that can change distance, not between the lens in your face, it doesn't move the lens itself, but it moves the forehead pad and that resting point on your face. So if you want to extend that out, your glasses can fit more comfortably. I was actually able to fit my glasses in here without the lenses scratching the interior of these lenses, even at the minimal distance, for the maximum field of view. And what allows for the weight to be better distributed and not feel like the weight is all in the front isn't just that they move a lot of the hardware, like the battery, to the back of the headset, but because they're using a new display and optical stack in here. They're new panels, display panels, still LCD panels, but now paired with pancake lenses that are very thinner than the hybrid and Fresnel lenses we've been accustomed to in past HMDs. Now, it's not the first headset out there with pancake lenses, and we feel like this is a place where HMDs are moving toward. The Pico 4 has pancake lenses. The prototype Meta headsets I used when I visited Reality Labs Research were all pancake lenses. And here you can just see the profile of it is just that much thinner. And the benefits of pancake lenses aren't just for the weight distribution, paired with the LCD panels, which are roughly the same resolution as what's in the Quest 2. These are 1800 by 1920 for each panel, although it's 2 panels now, it's not a single panel like the Quest 2, so you're not missing any of that, the display in the center, even though the pixels per degree are roughly the same, slightly increased here. It's really about the clarity. With the pancake lenses, no longer are you suffering from some of the optical artifacts that we found with Fresnel and hybrid lenses. First of all, no more God rays. Did not notice God rays at all while using this. Massive, immediately noticeable difference. I also didn't notice any mirror or chromatic aberration. That was all corrected with the software. And really the sweet spot of clarity inside here was far improved, I think, over the Quest 2. Really feels like night and day. I took some photos through the lens using an ultra wide angle lens. And you can see in the Quest 2, if you look to the periphery on both the outside periphery and also on the lower part of your field of view, images, text just starts getting stretched out and blurry. It's like it looks like you're looking through a lens. Here, you can actually peer to the side. I could move my eyes around almost the entire field of view, and I was able to read text. I was able to have 3 browser windows, and without having to fully move my head left and right, I could read text off to both the left and right side. It really was a massive difference. The LCD panels also have a quantum dot layer, and one of the things I wasn't sure of when I first hands-on was how much the color quality would be improved, because Meta has made a big point about color representation being just better in the Quest Pro, and it actually is. Doing my A/B testing with the Quest 2 and the Quest Pro, the Quest 2 starts looking a little bit less saturated. The colors just don't pop as much. Even in the UI menu, browsing through my library of applications, looking at the web pages, images, icons, the background environments look just a little more vibrant in the Quest Pro. Now, contrast-wise, it does have local dimming with 500 mini LEDs, and that's where I actually didn't see a ton of benefit. The contrast looked pretty good in the main UI, but once I launched a game and, for example, plugged in and played some Half-Life Alyx over Oculus Link, dark scenes still looked not fully black. They could still look like the gray levels were a little bit elevated here. And that's because I think they're not actually using a per frame analysis of scenes to see which areas of the scene are black to dim the LEDs, the mini LEDs in those spots like you would have in a modern HD TV with local dimming. John Carmack talked about how to do that, to do a per frame analysis of scenes, to do local dimming, would just add too much latency in the motions of photon chain, and it would be noticeable in how much lag and discomfort you would feel when moving the headset around. So the benefits of mini LED not immediately noticeable right now. And while I didn't see any optical artifacts like God rays coming from the displays through the lenses, something that you do notice, and I definitely noticed, was the light leak. Because the way the headset's designed, it does not completely fill up your entire field of view with a light blocking gasket. You can see light coming in from the sides. You can definitely see a lot of light coming in from the bottom, which when you pair it with the pass-through system, which we'll talk about in a minute, works well and helps increase the sense of awareness you have in your space, in your physical space. But when you're playing a full VR game, you might not necessarily want that light coming in from the side. So there are 2 solutions for this. What comes in the box are a series of these blinders, these light blockers, which magnetically attach to the left and right side. So very easily pop in. There it goes. And are removed. They're rubber. They're not cloth, so they have they're very, very lightweight. Don't add a ton of weight. But what I found is using the side light blockers did make it tougher to wear my glasses on the inside. And the side light blockers did work effectively in blocking out that side peripheral light. Doesn't block off any of the lower peripheral light, but for a lot of the VR games I played, that was actually enough. And in fact, I actually defaulted to ending up for most of the experiences, whether mixed reality or in full VR, not using the light blockers at all, because I valued the ability to take off the headset or see the pass-through by clicking the oculus button, and I was able to focus on the content and wasn't as distracted by having just a little bit of light come in to the side. Your experience may vary. Some people are much more sensitive to light leaks coming in and want to be fully enclosed in their VR experiences. And for that, there's a second accessory that will be shipping in November. Unfortunately, it's a $50 accessory. That's this light gasket. So this isn't shipping until next month, but Meta was able to send me one and light the side light blockers. It's just magnetically attaches. It's made of the same rubber, and it does have the light blocking on the bottom. It doesn't have, though, a full nose light blocking. So if you remember in the previous headsets, there would be like this open panel that you'd have to fully block out light from the nose. Here, it still doesn't fully block that nose light. So a little bit does come through, and I noticed that when you have the full light blocker attached, it does add a little bit of extra distance between the bottom of the headset and the surface, and so it doesn't sit in the charging dock fully flush, and the headset doesn't charge while this light blocker is in. So maybe wait and see what some third parties will come up with. I don't know if a company like VR Cover is working on their own solution for light blockers, and if they are, I would love to check those out as well, because I'd love to have something that maybe I can have sitting on the charge dock and not need to put it on and remove it every time I have the headset on that charging dock. So one of the big flagship features of the Quest Pro is it now has color pass-through cameras. The Quest 2 did pass through. It used the tracking cameras for inside-out tracking and gave you a representation of your world reprojected in grayscale, in a very low-res, fuzzy grayscale, kind of looked like a security cam footage. And you would use that to generate your Guardian, and Meta has allowed the pass-through API to be used by developers to integrate pass-through as an environment for their games. So you could be playing a game like Cubism, where you would have 3D objects in front of you, but still be in your space. The color pass-through basically is an extension of that. And one of the questions I had going into testing this was, would the new resolution, the high resolution and fidelity of that pass-through, as well as the added color of that pass-through, be one, good enough for true mixed reality experiences, and two, be a big meaningful difference from the grayscale pass-through you see in the Quest 2, which I still find pretty comfortable and preferable than the fully rendered environments in some of these games like Cubism, like Puzzling Places. And what I found is the color pass-through was actually pretty nice. It's far from perfect. It still kind of looks like webcam footage, doesn't resolve highlights very well. The exposure is all over the place. If you're in a room with a light or you're looking at a computer monitor, you have a TV on, it's not going to do a great job letting you see the objects in your space, plus something that's light being emitted because they're not HDR cameras. It's taking the color image from the center camera and then superimposing it over the reprojected environment that the two SLAM cameras in the front are generated. And it's interesting. You can actually pass your hand over the center camera, and it then kind of transitions back to a grayscale image. And then once you remove the obstruction over the center, the color sweeps back in. The color is meaningful. It means that I can recognize more objects in my space. The continuity between what I see in the headset in that pass-through and what I see outside the left, right, and the bottom of the headset just feels more like they're a piece of the same environment. The resolution, though, leaves a bit to be desired, and while it is an improvement over the pixelated, the kind of fuzzy resolution that you see in the grayscale pass-through of the Quest 2, it's nowhere near high enough that I think I could be comfortable picking a piece of paper and reading it comfortably without having it close to my face. I tried reading the back of a book, and I had to really kind of squint and move it around to recognize it. Readable, yes. Comfortable to read, no. It's not really made for interacting with the objects in your world. It's more about you recognizing where the things are in your world relative to the rendered objects, like the rendered web browsers, like rendered game content overlaid on top of that pass-through environment. And I don't know if, given the approach that Meta is using for its color pass-through, a single RGB camera overlaid on top of reprojected SLAM cameras, is going to allow for the kind of photoreal 8K stereo camera quality, 3D video quality we're used to, or that we tend to take for granted today in VR, because those cameras don't have to be SLAM cameras as well as a reprojected model of the world. They just have to be stereo. Here, they're doing a lot of calculations for taking those images to track the world, as well as only one color pass-through camera. I'm curious what their approach is in the future to add, hopefully, just more dynamic range to the color pass-through, so there won't be such a big exposure change whether you're looking outside a window or around the objects in your living room and home space. This is not a headset for walking around from inside your house to walking outside the way the cameras and the tracking is currently set up. Speaking of tracking, one of the biggest difference in the tracking of the Quest Pro is the new touch controllers. So no longer are these controllers visually tracked using IR light array with a tracking ring like the previous Quest 2, Quest, and Rift controllers, but now they have their own tracking built in, inside-out tracking built in with 3 cameras and a processor inside, which is really interesting because they made these rechargeable, they added better motors for haptics. All of that is add a little weight to the Quest Pro controller, which is noticeable when you're holding this. So even though it may have better tracking and you don't run into the problem of the rings bashing into each other, I did notice that over time they are a little bit hefty. But the tracking it's really good. The inside-out tracking, I was worried that maybe under low light scenarios, it wouldn't be able to track well, but work really well under low light. They sync relatively quickly, but if you think about it, they not only have to calculate where these controllers are relative to the space around it, what's most important is where these controllers are relative to the headset that you're wearing. They have to kind of calibrate between themselves. And sometimes it does take a few seconds where you pick up the controllers, you see the virtual hand, you see the controllers, and you get maybe 3-axis rotational tracking, but they're misaligned from your hand. And after a few seconds, when the top camera here sees the headset and they see each other, then it snaps into place. So not as quick as the Quest 2 controllers to be recognized by the headset and be fully aligned, but I think the tracking is just as good. Obviously, you don't get any occlusion problems or field of view problems if you have the controller above your head or behind you, and the latency was low enough that it didn't noticeably feel any different than using the Quest 2 controllers in games like Beat Saber. Unfortunately, you cannot pair the Quest 2 controllers with the Meta Quest Pro, but you can pair the new touch controllers with the Quest 2. So these will be sold as a separate accessory optionally if you want to buy them for $300 for the pair. And one of my biggest pet peeves is they got rid of any USB charging. They went for a proprietary 3 pin connector here, which yes, magnetically attaches to the charging base, but if you don't have that, you're basically left with the one extra charge cable that they include in the box, so you can charge the controllers one at a time. And because these are using cameras and processing, the battery life on these controllers are far shorter than the super long battery life that we found on the Quest 2 controllers. I mean, one AA battery on this would last for weeks, if not months. After about 3 hours of use on the Quest Pro, the batteries here would be dipped to around 50%. And they say it's about 8 hours of battery for these controllers in normal use. Feels like more like 6 to 7 based on how I was using it. And so after every gameplay session, when it was time to recharge the headset, these would go onto the charging dock as well. So speaking of battery, one of the big concerns we had coming out of our preview and the initial briefing was the reported 1 to 2 hours of battery life, which is pretty dramatically shorter than what you get in a Quest 2, especially if you have a battery pack attached to the back. And here, the battery pack is already attached to the back, so you're not going to find any easy way to plug in the battery unless you're maybe attaching it to your hip. But thankfully, I found that the battery life on this was pretty wide-ranging. So in the worst-case scenario, when I had all the sensors turned on, I was using a pass-through environment, playing a game, also had face tracking and eye tracking turned on, didn't get more than an hour and a half of battery, which is kind of unfortunate because they're hoping that people will be using this for long periods, for meetings, for all sorts of mixed reality experiences. If I had the pass-through cameras on but turned off face tracking and eye tracking, was doing a very simple task like just using the web browsers in the UI menu, I was able to get over 2 hours. Not a big deal. And the best part, though, was that if I was not using any of the pass-through cameras, turned off face tracking, turned off eye tracking, and playing a game like DMEO, dimmed the brightness a little bit to 75%, no problem getting over 3 hours. After 2 hours of use, battery life was about 40%, was able to push it between 3 and 3.5 hours. So I couldn't quite get to the 4 hours that John Carmack said they've been able to get. And of course, your experience may vary depending on the types of games and experiences you're using here. So if you want longer battery life, turn off that pass-through, turn off those internal sensors, and maybe dim the brightness a little bit. Something that I didn't know I'd be turning on or leaving on are those new internal cameras, the eye tracking cameras and the face tracking cameras that allow your avatar in Horizon Workrooms to be more expressive. Now, not a ton of applications take advantage of this, and games and experiences that have their own avatars, like Rec Room, are going to have to figure out a way to tap into the hooks that the new face trackers here give you. But using Horizon Workrooms and jumping into a session with Jeremy, who's using the Quest 2, and seeing his avatar, of course, I wasn't getting any of the benefits of the new face tracking and eye tracking, but after having a couple minutes of conversation, he was telling me that the experience for him was actually really improved, which is an interesting thing because the face tracking and eye tracking doesn't necessarily benefit you because you're not looking at mirrors all the time. It's a technology that benefits other people you're in social VR with. And it may let you better communicate across your ideas with expressions that you previously weren't able to capture or had to be abstracted with cheats, essentially, in the Quest 2. So, for example, the previous meta avatars, if you're looking at someone, the mouths would move based on when the microphones would detect audio, which is I think we've had in video game engines forever, but eye contact was something that was definitely cheated. So they were playing keep alive animations for blinking of the eyes and moving of the eyebrows. And if the system detected that you were looking at someone with the head tracking and that you guys were talking to each other based on audio microphones being activated, they would lock your eyes, and it would kind of give you a sense that you were talking to someone, but it was a cheat. And what Jeremy was telling me when I had my face tracking, eye tracking turned on, not only were there more expressions that he was able to notice, from the squinting of the eyes to just the way I was moving my mouth, I was exaggerating at some points, but it did feel to him more recognizable as me. The subtle movements that I would be making in real life that he would recognize from talking to me in person, he saw some of that in the avatar. Clearly not photoreal, just an upper body torso. It's more of a cartoon, but that cartoon to him not just was more expressive, it was more familiar. And interestingly enough, for me, it didn't feel like I was more exposed to him. I think there's a difference in your brain cognitively when you know you're being recorded in a video versus when you're kind of hiding behind an avatar. And one of the benefits of using an avatar is that it does offer you kind of a layer of just protection from being fully exposed to someone looking at you in real life or over video. And even though the new expressive avatars, the face tracking, the eye tracking was getting more of my personality through to Jeremy, I, as a user, still felt like I had that layer of protection, that layer of distance between me and him, where I felt more comfortable, honestly. I felt comfortable in my avatar skin than I might be, with the social anxieties that people have and that you and I have in the real world, even talking to a video camera right now. It's really a fascinating thing that requires more time to explore, and hopefully I'll be able to experience it on the other side as well, as I get to chat with people using face tracking and eye tracking in Quest Pros in virtual environments. And that's really Meta's pitch with the Quest Pro. Not only is it an enterprise headset and priced as such with just better ergonomics, better displays and optics, and better tracking, but that the kind of professional environments that they imagine people using this in will really benefit from more expressive avatars and more connected conversations that you have. Now, whether that's going to prove to be the case, not sure. I don't know how many companies out there right now, or even within Meta, are requiring people do VR equivalents of Zoom meetings. It still feels a little bit too early for that, even with millions of Quest 2s out in the world right now. And looking at the applications that were made available for me to test with the Quest Pro that took advantage of the Quest Pro's features, it felt kind of lackluster. It didn't feel like the fully loaded launch lineup that we'd come to expect for like a console launch or even past headset launches from Oculus and Meta in the past, where there would be dozens of developers out there. And I'm sure there are dozens of developers that have a Quest Pro right now, but it doesn't feel, at least today, that there are a ton of applications that really take advantage of the benefits of pass-through or face tracking or the spatial understanding of your space by you creating a desk or mapping out the walls or your couch. And even the ones that were available, yes, there's Gravity Sketch, there's Archeo, which is a design application for interior spaces and site planning. They felt a little bit more like tech demos to me than practical applications, and I just don't know. I'm not a professional user who would require those applications in day-to-day use. The killer app that it seems like they want to design for this is the first-party Horizon Workrooms application. And even that feels incomplete and more a beta application right now. Certainly, you can jump into virtual meetings and have 16 different people in a shared space with spatial audio, and you see their expressive avatars, and you can do a whiteboard, and you can even attach the nub to the bottom of the controller to do a handwriting stylus. Yes, those features work, but I'm not in meetings all the time, and the battery life on this is going to drain unless I plug it in if I use this for more than 2 hours. So really, it feels like the workroom situation, the virtual desktop situation where you can mirror a laptop, mirror a desktop, might be their killer app. And even then, not fully complete as well. You might have seen some of the screenshots or viral videos of a pass-through environment and 3 virtual screens. And there's a little bit of a confusion going on because there are 2 ways you can access like a web browser in the Quest Pro. You can mirror your desktop, so you run a local client on your laptop or your desktop computer, you run Horizon Workrooms, and if you're running like a MacBook Pro, great. You can have 3 screens, a main screen and 2 virtual screens, extended windows and browsers, whatever, and you wear the headset, and the text is readable with this. The clarity of the optics makes it actually usable, albeit at a not 4K resolution. It's more of a 1080p resolution. On the Windows side, you don't get virtual desktops at all right now. They're still working that out. Now I have multiple monitors and I was mirroring my desktop computer over in headset, and it does get the second monitor and second orientation, changes the resolution to max out at 1080p. But if I had my keyboard paired with the headset and my keyboard tracked, there's no input that I could send via this keyboard over to the Bluetooth of the headset to control my computer remotely. It really is designed for you to be kind of using your laptop and wearing your headset in your laptop so you get a bigger virtual display than the 15 or 17-inch screen in front of you while you're still using the actual keyboard and mouse connected to that computing device. I wish I was able to have the power of my desktop PC, but be able to have a wireless keyboard in my living room or my kitchen with those virtual screens. That would be pretty neat. Input just doesn't pass through that screen mirroring right now. Now, the other way you can use a browser, and my preferred way to use it, was actually in the home menu, using a browser where you can put up to 3 windows, scale it up and down. And with the new processing, the Snapdragon XR2 Plus, really buttery smooth to get 3 web browsers up, playing a YouTube video, browsing Reddit, and then opening a document to type in, again, using then a Bluetooth connected keyboard and a virtual mouse cursor. That all worked pretty well. And that you can think of as almost like a widget-based approach. And I wish there was more of those home applications aside from the browser. It kind of reminds me of the launch of the iPhone, the web-based apps that you find on the home screen. You kind of see some of that. You launch Acrobat in the Quest Pro and actually launches the web browser-based version of Acrobat. And I'm surprised that with this launch, there aren't more first-party native applications. You know, even things like a clock widget or a calculator widget or a calendar widget would be really useful to fill up that virtual space without having the mirroring of a desktop or laptop and headset. Which is a thing that surprises me because Meta was able to tease this headset as Project Cambria last year, over a year ago. And I gotta imagine they have teams working to make first-party applications and developer relations teams to get these out to developers to really take advantage of this. And I'm surprised that at launch today, there's not a ton extra you can do with this headset, and it really is about the potential of what's to come, which is why we really need to do a little bit more long-term testing. You know, in my preview, I kind of equated this to like the iPhone 10, where Apple was able to introduce new form factor, a new design language for a higher priced smartphone. And the more I think about it, the less this feels like that iPhone 10, because it's still not a general purpose device where I can feel like I can do everything I'd want to do on my laptop or my desktop wearing this headset. It feels still a little bit kind of like the first Rift, where it was new and there's a lot of cool experiences, but the things that would take advantage of the new platform and new abilities was yet to come. And my fear for this headset is that it's going to feel obsolete sooner than people would hope. For anyone spending, even businesses spending $1,500 on a headset today, you don't want it to feel like this is not going to be top of the line 2 to 3 years from now. And in some cases, with the performance of the chipset here, I do feel like I'm pushing on some of the limits of that performance already today at launch. It's an exciting new form factor. There are a lot of interesting features in here that give us some insight into the future of mixed reality devices, and definitely things we had not experienced before. But in that sense, again, feels very much like the Rift, where if you wait a little bit, there's going to be the next generation with a lot better to come. And for gamers, let's wait till the Quest 3. Very excited to see what features in this headset make our way over to that. So that's the Meta Quest Pro. It's out today, $1,500. I don't know if any of you are looking into getting one, but if you have questions about this, about the technology that this represents, please post them in the comments below. And like I said, I've only been able to really test this for past 4 days, and so consider this part one in a longer term series of testing where we'll see how this fares against dedicated wired PC gaming headsets and what developers have to show after they have had more time to incorporate the features of this Quest Pro. Thanks so much for watching. As always, I'm Norm, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.